Hey guys, hope everyone is well. Welcome back to another Sunday Sessions video. Obviously, if you are new to this series and this channel, essentially what we do every single week is on a Sunday, we like to give you guys a run through of which markets we're looking at, what pairs we're watching, and pretty much the setups we're going to be looking to potentially trade in that coming week so that you can understand our bias. Now, this is also great for people who are inside of our VIP chat, the people that are kind of following along with the trades that we place, because you can now see the theory work behind why we place those trades. You know, how do we view the market? What are the insights we're looking at? What are the points of interest we're looking to trade from, so that you can really stay in the loop and know exactly what it is we're looking for. Now, before we get really kick-started into this video, I do just want to actually give a big shout out to a couple of the clients who, as of this week, have officially passed their funded account challenges. So I want to give a really big shout out to Reese, a really big shout out to Elvis, and also a really big shout out to Shanine, all for going out there and using the information and the knowledge that we give them to go and actually pass the evaluation period of a funded account, which honestly is really exciting. It's really amazing to see over time now we have more and more clients that are using the value of what we give them to go out and really take advantage. You know, there's really going to be two options between everybody that is a part of the community, whether you're, you know, a paid member in the VIP chat or somebody that just takes advantage of watching the YouTube for free. Either one is absolutely fine. You know, it's all about how do you take that information to implement it. There is so much information that we put out on our website, on the YouTube, more than enough for you guys to actually go out there and be really, really successful in this avenue. So it's great to see that we have examples of people going out there and doing so. And I'm really excited to see more people follow suit. So starting off, we're going to go with euro to the US dollar. This is a market I've been watching quite a lot recently, just because I believe there is a really nice bias right now in the market. And as we come to those higher time frames, I can see clear signs of what price wants to do long term. So kind of starting off here on the 3-month time frame, I like to give myself that overall bias just to understand what's happening. And what we can quite clearly see is that price has been trading in bullish structure here on the 3-month time frame. And quite recently, we've had price come in traders down into a demand zone. It's a bit of a hidden point of interest, but a demand zone here. And what I really like to see about this is as we've kind of headed towards this demand zone, we've seen that price has kind of got ready for a reversal. And what I mean by that is it started to move sideways. We've started to build up quite a lot of liquidity in this region. And we can see a nice big move down to liquidate that area, tap into our zone before starting to get fractal breaks of structure higher. Coming down on the 1 week, what looks really, really nice here is after we tapped in the zone, we've had a clear impulse, a clear reaccumulation in this region. And as we've broken out of that reaccumulation, we can see that price has moved away from it with a very, very high momentum and very high volume, which leads me to believe that this is the start of a new bullish trend longer term. And obviously, therefore, as we go down the lower time frames, I'm going to take that bias of bullishness into play because I appreciate that I would ideally like to see price come and run these highs that we see on the screen and therefore give us a great opportunity to get involved in buy positions for quite a long time to come. Now, as we come down to the day, obviously you'll see that I like to use these kind of colored boxes to help me really set out the story that I'm telling myself for the market. So I use the blue boxes for structure and I use the red boxes for my points of interest. Working on the 1 day time frame and looking inside of this structure I've identified, it looks pretty nice. You know, we can see that where we had this lower time frame accumulation, we've had a clear impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, correction. This correction came to tap us back down into the last sell move before the buy. And ever since we've seen that, we've seen price really trade up. We can see over the last kind of week, we've had a really good bullish move and plenty of opportunities to go long in this market. But now I want to see in this coming week, what are we looking at and how can I look to take advantage of more buys? So if we come down onto the 1 hour time frame, and we now kind of really look inside of this most recent structure that we've had. This is really what happened this week, you know, going from Monday to the end. We can see a really nice bullish move where we've had, you know, an impulse, a bit of sideways movement, another impulse, and now we're getting ready to move sideways again. So I'm going to be really, really curious to see what does this sideways movement want to do? Is this a reaccumulation or is it a distribution? Or essentially what I mean by that is this sideways movement there in order to reverse the market lower. If so, I'm going to be watching for price to tap one of these two zones that I have my alert set at, because that could just be the correctional wave to gain enough demand to take the next move higher. Or what could happen alternatively is that if this is a reaccumulation and we've still got a lot of demand in the market, it would be really nice to see price start to break higher and give us signs on the lower time frames that we're ready to actually create a new impulsive wave. And if that is the case, I will be looking to get involved in a lot of buy positions in the first few days of the week. As you can see, I have some alerts set. So I'm either going to be notified when price pulls us down into this zone or when price starts to break structure to the upside. You know, looking economically, it does still seem like the dollar is slightly weak. And looking at, you know, the Forex sentiment for the euro and the dollar, there does seem to be a lot of signs that this should remain bullish. And therefore, essentially what I'm going to be looking at is, like we stated, either I'm going to be taking longs from this zone, or I'm going to see price start to break up higher, and I'm going to be looking for longs. How am I going to look for longs? Well, essentially what we've seen on this time frame where we've had impulse, reaccumulation, impulse, or kind of stage ones and stage twos of structure, what I'd love to see on this time frame is price kind of start to break out. As we kind of break to the upside, seeing a lot of volume in the market. So the move that breaks us through is very high volume, very bullish candles, clearly showing liquidity and momentum. And then what I'd like to see is a bit of a reaccumulation form or a little bit of sideways movement before going higher. And this is really where I'll be looking to get involved in a move. Or we might see price pull us back down into a zone fractally. And again, I'll be looking to take longs to take advantage of the potential move we may have higher. What's really, really exciting about this is, as we said before, I do believe price is going to be running highs for a very, very long time. Looking on the daily, I think we'll need to go to, we can see that the high I believe it's going to be running now is that kind of 1.22658. So if we take a ruler and really look from where we're at now to where price is, I believe we have hundreds of pips worth of room that price would like to move in my personal bias. And therefore, the more buy positions I can edge onto this week, next week, in the coming weeks, yes, I'll take partials to manage my risk, of course, but it would be nice to see myself holding them slightly longer term to take advantage of this higher time frame move that we seem to be fulfilling right now. Okay, I'm going to move over to silver, or XAG USD. Quite a similar market to gold. Obviously, it has its slight differences, but I am watching both gold and silver at the moment. Well, before I kind of touch into the technical side, why? Well, there is currently a little bit of instability and worry around the economy right now, especially with what's going on in the world, you know, with the US actually getting involved in strikes against Iran. So essentially what that's going to mean is there's a little bit of uncertainty of what might happen in the coming future with the US, or essentially with the US dollar. So what that's going to lead investors to want to do is move away from the dollar safe haven and move into things like silver, gold, which are other safe havens that are a little bit less unstable right now. And therefore, I believe we're going to see continued bullishness on both silver and gold. If we do a bit of an analysis in the long run of silver, we can see that after kind of reaccumulating for some time, we finally broke out of that reaccumulation. And once we've broken out of that sideways movement, we've seen a lot of nice bullish structure. We entered another little region of sideways movement, a big breakout to the upside. And essentially what I'm looking for is, we know that price is in a range right now. But essentially what I think is going to happen is what we saw happen here is essentially going to replicate in my eyes. What do I mean by that? Well, we're ranging up so that we can free up liquidity, so that we can manipulate people out of the market. And just in the same way that you'd pull back a slingshot, we're gaining the momentum that we need, or essentially we're pulling that slingshot far enough back so that when we let go, the resulting movement has a lot of velocity, a lot of momentum, and is ready to really take off. So that's what I'd love to see with this market right now. Maybe we'll see during this little bit of consolidation, price does actually pull us down to manipulate downside liquidity, tap into the demand zone before breaking higher, or I'll just start to see signs of price breaking higher. What do I mean by that? Well, if we look what happened here, price broke the previous high, reaccumulated on a lower time frame, took off. So what would I like to see here? Well, if price actually pulls back up, break structure, I want to see signs again that the institutions are here to play. So maybe a reaccumulation, or just using a supply and demand analysis, I will be able to determine that they're active. And once I've determined that they're active and I can see the volume behind the move, I'll be getting ready to buy into this market to take much higher. Those are the two main markets that I'm looking for at the moment. What I do also like to do, just as a bit of a heads up and tip for you guys, I do quite like to use a sentiment viewer. So looking at the euro to the US dollar, on the daily, we are still 82% bullish on the sentiment. Obviously, we're 69% bearish currently in the intraday, which is because we're having a slight pullback. We're having a slight bit of sideways movement. But as I stated, if we do break that sideways movement to the upside, I know that this intraday sentiment will rise much, much higher on the bullish side. And typically, if we can see that intraday and daily align to over 70%, it's a really good sign that bullishness is in control and that the momentum in the market or liquidity on the market of that side is in our favor to push price up. If we then look again at silver, obviously silver looks amazing right now. We're 88% on the daily and 84% on the intraday. So a lot of that is aligning towards my bias of wanting to see silver really take off. So both markets, I do have my alerts set up. I would be watching for price to deliver what I want to do, but ultimately I want to round off on just saying trading isn't about predicting, it's about reacting. And what I mean by that is I can sit here and I could say price should do X, Y, and Z. But that doesn't mean it's always going to do that. You know, none of the greatest traders in the world are able to look at a market and say it's going to exactly do this X, Y, Z. No, because the market can do anything. There can be things that happen around the world that change the political state or the economical confidence, and that can cause a market to move in any given direction at any given point. And ultimately, it's very hard to understand the market maker's outlook on this. But what we can do is, given the signs that we are delivered in the market, we can adjust our story and adjust our bias accordingly, and then use our set plan and set strategy to determine what is the best course of action, the best plan of action right now, given what we see. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. If you would like further updates on these markets, our analysis and our outlook, make sure you're involved in the LAGFX Learning Lounge group chat. It's a completely free group chat on Telegram where we'll update how we're trading this throughout the week. Obviously, for anyone who's interested in seeing exactly how we tackle these markets and the specifics, we always have the VIP chat and the VIP pass. But without further ado, if you guys enjoyed, please feel free to leave a comment and a like. It genuinely helps us out so much. And obviously, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please take 5 seconds out of your day to support us. We would really appreciate it. But with that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next week in the next Sunday sessions.